Good morning, equity guys. Welcome to Equity Guys pre-market video. I am Manjunath, NISM technical analyst. Let's see what happened on Friday in the market. So Nifty 50 closed 148 points positive, Nifty Bank 180 points positive, Sensex 449 positive. So on the Friday, the market had closed positive, means there is some indication that okay, this week there will be a bullishness. Let's see what happened in the last. What will happen in the future? So now India VIX, India Volatility Index is minus 2.79% changes in a single day. So it's neutral to bullish data. Crude oil December future, which is running below pre-COVID level, price level of 6,500. So the data is bullish. Now let's see about Gift Nifty Gold Bees Silver Bees in the end. Gold Bees Silver Bees made once again all-time high. See all-time high, friends. Silver Bees in the last 1 month before we were saying about buy on dip market for Silver Bees. So now it is all-time high. Really, it is fantastic move. So next, let's go to Nifty 50. So Nifty 50, you can see here there is a gap up, then it took support from R2, it was a R2 here, or resistance 2. From there you can see a bullish candle pattern of hammer, then you can see a bullish rally closing above 26,000 levels. So as we predicted in the pre-market video, that was the levels, but you can see here there is some bullish candle, but still it's outside of the channel. That is to be remembered. So the candles were forming inside the channel. Now once it broke down, then the candles are recovering. Let's see how it will be. Sectoral wise data, Nifty 80 positive, Nifty Bank is positive, Nifty Infrastructure is positive, auto sector is positive, metal sector is also a positive. So on the Friday, the major sectors had closed positive. The data is bullish. Advanced decline ratio, again 2066 companies closed positive, data is bullish. Nifty 50, yes, Nifty 50 is also sentiment is bullish. Nifty Bank is neutral to neutral data. So I can say Nifty Bank is, there is some neutral data. So you can predict neutral to bullish. Nifty Bank is neutral to bullish data. Option chain, we have to select expiry of 16th December 2025 for Nifty 50. That is weekly expiry on next tomorrow. So in the money call option is buying, out of the money call option is buying, data is bullish. In the money put option is selling, out of the money put option is also selling. So data is bullish. PCR ratio, you can see that is 1.2 PCR ratio, that is not neutral. Now let's see what is the support and resistance as per option chain. You can see 26,000 levels will act as strong support zone. That is very good. Then supports resistance side. Yes, there is no resistance side because the option chain is buying in the money call option and out of the money call option. Now let's go to FIDI data. In cash market, FIs are selling, DIs are buying, but DIs are buying compared to huge compared to FIs. So DIs are buying around 2,600 crores, 2,600, 2,700 crores. That is good. Buying in from DIs, index futures, there is selling from FIs, stock futures, there is buying. So people are FIs are holding some futures in stocks, but in index they are closing their positions. Let's see what will happen. So data is neutral to bullish. Let's go to global market. So see, US 30 is running positive, US 500 positive, US Tech 100 is also positive. So data is bullish. Now, how US market performed on Friday and European market also. So Dow Jones performed negative, S&P 500 negative, Nasdaq is also negative. So data is bearish. American market is not supporting. So European market is also negative. Now let's see Asian market, how it will be. Asian market, you can see Asian market is 647 points negative. So some sell-off in Nikkei. Then Hang Seng is Friday being a Friday positive. So it closed positive on Friday. So Kospi is also negative as of now. Let's see how it will be. But global cash markets is suggesting bearishness. Asian ADRs, important ADRs, Wipro ADR is negative sell-off. You can see Infosys ADR is neutral to bearish. ICICI by HDFC Bank ADR is buying. So Dr. Reddy's Lab selling. So data is neutral to bearish. Now based on that one, let's have some derivative market calculation. Now Nifty December future, if you compare with Nifty 50, it's bullish. Yes, 100 points. So Bank Nifty December future, yes, there is a demand in derivative market. So Nifty Bank is also positive. Nifty Bank that is also bullish. Now see Gift Nifty. So gift nifty, if you compare with the nifty December future, it is 100 points sell off, 100 points the discount price, correct? So you can predict it. So you have down today. Let's see how it will be. Okay, based on that one, first mark support and resistance. So yesterday's means Friday's being 12/12/2025. That is our first resistance. That is 26,057. Then 26,178 is being our second resistance. Then 26,200 will be our third resistance zone. Support side 25,938 is our first support. Then 25,693 will be our second support. So being too far, you mark multiples of 100 as well, and you can mark this gap zone also, which will act as magnet for the day. Now, what is the intraday point of view, or what is the investment point of view? Investment point of view, yes, the cycle, just the gap zone, which was here 25 6 25 695 was a zone where you could have bought good quality stocks based on your uh, research. Now, so that is the investment point of view. Now you can see what is intraday point of view. Intraday point of view is very, very simple. The data is neutral. Data is neutral in decision. First 15 minutes high and first 15 minutes low will be our key indication. But remember one more thing, this S1 is very important support zone. If it breaks down, then sell on rallies continue, then you can see still the candles will come back below to 26,000, 25,900. You can predict like that. And this gap is also important, 25,900. So this is the important zone of S1. If S1 is taken down, sell and rallies. If the market takes support from gap zone and it will goes on goes up, then you can say, okay, there is some buy on dip market. Okay, so that is the view for the day. So that's my view. You can trade your setups, not your views or my views. Thank you. All the best.